We'll call the meeting to order at 5:32, regular select board meeting of September 23rd, 2020. And any adjustments to the agenda?
No.
Are we adding the one thing or not? That's just coming under.
That will be under, yeah, there'll be one item under other business.
Added, and that's the resolution.
Right, and when we get there, you can, yeah, read it into record.
Okay. Okay, so approval of minutes of August 26th, 2020, September 9th, 2020, and September 17th. And the August 26th ones are still the ones that I was the only one present for, right? Okay,
right.
So we won't do those. So September 9th and September 17th, David.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve those minutes, September 9th and 17th, 2020.
Okay, I'll second that motion. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of September 9th and September 17th. If there's no further discussion, then all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Warrants. So I'll make a motion to approve and execute the warrants as presented and upon completion of review.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve and execute warrants as presented upon completion of review. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And so there's just one correction also from last week's payroll warrant, that it read 11,675.21 and it should have read 16,874.41. So that has been noted and was corrected. So do you want to just run through those warrants, Karen?
I will. So payroll warrant dated September 25th, 2020 in the amount of $15,835.65. And then we have accounts payable dated September 12th through September 25th, 2020 in the amount of $1,281,773.14. Of that warrant, we do have a check payable to the school district for $1,200,000. That is the first installment.
All right. David, you got any questions on anything on there?
I don't actually. 3 installments, Karen?
Correct. So we still have not received the preliminary cash flow report, but usually by September we make our first payment. And so the schools are operating on a $52 million budget for the year, which breaks down to $1 million a week. So I'm comfortable sending this check now. Normally, by state statute, we have 20 days to send the payment.
All right. We have a significant. I'm getting an echo. Is that just me?
I'm hoping it's not me.
Hold on. You're echoing too, Karen. So am I.
Okay. Still have it. I'm just wondering, we had a significant check to Salmon and Austrian, Karen, and was that related to?
I think it's David's mic that's echoing.
David, can you mute?
Okay.
Let's
That
try
solved
that.
it? Yeah, that's better. So
right,
there was a big check to Salmon and Austrian. I'm just wondering what that was related to.
So there were 2 checks to that office, and one was for the tax sales.
Oh,
So-
there you go. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Associated with the tax sales.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Other than that, all look pretty straightforward to me. David, you got any more questions on those guys or not? Okay, good. So public comment on items not on the agenda. Was there somebody who wanted to comment specifically on this, Karen? We have listed letters from public relative to Black Lives Matter and September 2nd Select Board meeting. There's a variety of letters, both supportive of the mural and not supportive of the mural, and or not so much not supportive of the mural, but concerned about some implications to safety and security, particularly at the school related to the mural. And then there are also letters about the September meeting, September 2nd meeting, that are sort of across the board in their nature, and those are all of record if people want to see them. I don't know whether anybody else had any further comment on either of those things.
This is Jamie. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask if you wanted to see letters that are part of public record, how do you access them?
You can call the office, Jamie, and we can provide those to you.
And
Okay.
Karen, for the ones that are part of our packet, does the whole packet get posted?
No, it does not.
Maybe we should.
Yeah, the packet's very large. I mean, and I don't mind posting after the fact as well, Josh, but I think it's important that we acknowledge that we have these letters.
Yes.
And
I keep them, Karen.
Yes. Yeah, they go in our.
Yeah, I keep them with,
Select
with the minutes.
with the minutes. So at any point, they can go, anyone can request them. Jamie, normally we read them, but there's so many. Josh, perhaps we should state who they're from. If you're able to do that, I can do that from here if that's.
Yeah, I can. It's going to take me just a moment to come up with, let's see. We have letters. I'm not sure. I mean, there's a letter from Chantilly Gander about the September 2nd meeting. There's a letter from the management of the co-op about their support for the Black Lives Matter mural. There's a letter from Tara Caskeen, some concerns about the safety related to the school. There's a letter from Quakers in support of equity and inclusion from the Quaker Meeting Group. Carolyn Handy, concerned about painting in front of the school.
That's it. That's all of them, Josh.
That's it. Yeah, that's it for these. Okay, there are other, there's a SeVEDS letter, but that's different. So those are the ones that we have right now related specifically to that topic. All right, so is there any other further public comment on items not on the agenda? If you have anything.
Hello? I just wrote a message in the chat bubble. I thought that was how you wanted us to communicate.
Yes. Karen, Alyssa, are you able to manage the chat?
Yep, I sent you a message.
Oh, sorry, I didn't get it. So, sorry, who's this?
Farah.
Hi, Barra. You can go ahead if you have something to say.
Yeah, it's I'd like to read a statement and take about 5 minutes. Would you prefer that I put the camera on?
Sure, if you can. And yeah.
Yep. So my husband told me last week about the Black Lives Matter mural being painted in front of the Central School. A couple of years ago, I made a Black Lives Matter sign and posted it near the road. It was destroyed. Then I made another one and that one was removed. So I'm aware that not everyone in Putney is comfortable with the word Black Lives Matter. I was surprised that the mural was being painted without the town voting on it first, and I was curious about how people in town were navigating through this development. So I spent 5 hours reading Selectboard meeting minutes and watching the BC TV videos of meetings. I responded most to the Putney Selectboard special meeting on September 2nd of this year, where the Black Lives Matter mural was being discussed. At minute 56:39 of the BC TV video of the meeting, Josh Laughlin said, quote, "I have a sense with some of the folks in town, I haven't heard vocal opposition to the idea of this sign, but I think that there's concern of questions of division, and I would love there to be an educational opportunity to help people who don't understand what the importance of Black Lives Matter, to help them understand why it's so important. And I don't know how we might imagine doing that, but I think if we're going to put ourselves in a position of making a statement, we also have to take responsibility for some level of trying to bring the community together around this," unquote. In response, Laura Chapman said, quote, "The Equity and Inclusion Committee is kind of doing that. We have the book club, which is a form of educating folks, and Jamie's done a stellar job of doing outreach on that. And I think that it's important that we create a statement around this. And I think that the Equity and Inclusion Committee did come to us with a statement that we could use. And I would also add that this is a beginning step. There's so much more work to be done around this. And so I would love to see for us bringing things like the I Am Vermont 2 project to Putney," unquote. A little later, Stefan Gilm said, quote, "I think this conversation about community is interesting, and I think that the onus being put on all of us to educate the community is not necessarily the right way to go. If you can't educate yourself on why Black Lives Matter is a movement, then that sort of is on you to figure that out, in my opinion. And I say that because nobody educated me on why racists do what they do. They just do what they do, and I had to educate myself," unquote. I talked with an old-time Vermonter the other day, and he told me that many longtime Putney Republicans have said to him that they had been considering voting for a Democrat in the next presidential election. But after what's been happening around the Black Lives Matter mural in Putney and lawn signs being removed and people being accused of being white supremacists, these Republicans are now wondering if they should vote for Trump. It's clear to me that it's not the responsibility of any person of color to educate white folks in Putney about the Black Lives Matter movement, but maybe it's my responsibility. Maybe I can be helpful in this way. I appreciate that the Equity and Inclusion Committee is offering the book club, and there are a lot of people who won't be reached through that group or through the I Am Vermont 2 project. There are people who may need to just have a conversation with someone in an informal way. I'm willing to meet with people who don't understand why the Black Lives Matter mural is being painted and who maybe feel uncomfortable about it. I can share why I think it's so important to act boldly to make it clear that things need to be done differently in relation to how people of color are treated, but I'm also available to just listen to people. I've talked with a couple of people about this idea, and they asked why I don't just join the Equity and Inclusion Committee. My answer is that that committee doesn't feel like a safe place for me to share my opinions and engage with people. I am also not offering to meet and talk with people who see themselves as white supremacists or as devoted Trump supporters. That wouldn't feel safe to me either at this point. But I'd like to talk with Putney people who want to understand more about how things in the world are changing and how we can support each other through that. And I would really like to have support from others as I make myself available for these conversations. I've created the email account putneyconversations@gmail.com. So if there's anyone who's willing to do this with me, or if you're interested in talking with me, or if you know of people whom it might be helpful for me to talk with, please email putneyconversations@gmail.com. I'm not offering my personal contact info because a lot of people are being verbally and socially attacked for statements they make. The attacks are coming both from people who see themselves as white supremacists and from people who see themselves as supporters of the Black Lives Matter movement. That's the end of my statement. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Bara. Hopefully you will hear from some folks and be able to engage in meaningful conversations. We've had a flurry of activity on the select board, and we have not effectively come up with immediate outreach beyond equity and inclusion. So that is certainly the place for people to start if they feel comfortable with that. And also be in touch with David or I. We're all willing to have these conversations with anybody who is interested and desires to have a conversation about why we would or would not choose to take this action that we have chosen to. So, any other public comment on items not on the agenda?
Josh, this is Jamie.
Hi, Jamie.
Hey, I wanted to thank Bara. It was Bara?
Yep.
I wanted to thank her for speaking as the co-chair of Equity and Inclusion. And I also wanted to just extend an invitation to anybody in the community who wants to speak about this as well. And I wanted to just check in and make sure that folks do feel welcome and safe in the Equity and Inclusion Committee. That's the intention. So I don't know how to reach Bara, but I would love to extend that space and intention.
Well, she just mentioned the email address she has created, so you could reach out to her through that.
That's wonderful. Maybe it could go in the chat. I didn't catch it.
Yeah, it'll be of record in the minutes as well. You could check with Alyssa. Bara,
Okay,
do you
great.
want to repeat it one more time?
Yeah, it's putneyconversations@gmail.com, and I'm going to put it in the chat.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Bara.
You're welcome.
Okay, so if there are no further, sorry, I'm trying to look at the chat at the same time. If there are no further comments on items not on the agenda, we are going to move on to select board items for discussion and action. First on our list is Windham County Sheriff Route 5 graffiti status update. And Captain Paul Samataro, I see, is here with us. Captain Samataro, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you for having me.
What can you tell us?
I'll give you an update. Well, I'll give you an update. So far, since July 22nd, when the incident occurred, we've had an investigation going on with our department, along with Brattleboro PD and also state police. We have no further leads on this at this point. We put out a press release. No one has come forward with any further information. All we have basically now is the same as the person that gave us at the same day. The information the person gave us, I was driving by, that it was a 50 to 60-year-old slender woman with white hair spray painting on the roadway. We weren't able to get, of course, an ID on her at that time or any license plates. And so at this point, it's still open, and hopefully someone will come forward or we'll get more information. But at this point, no further leads.
That's too bad. I guess it's limited what what can be done to follow up on something like that when there isn't more information.
Correct. Well, we think it was a group, since it was spray painted, since there was 3 different locations, including Putney, that were tagged. We think it was the same group that went out there in just a different direction, did it at the same time. And unfortunately, there was no one that came forward that actually witnessed it.
Okay. All right. Well, if that's
Josh,
all,
I have a question.
yeah, go ahead,
Is this
Jamie.
appropriate?
Sure.
The Brattleboro officer who witnessed or took the testimony of the witness, I think was Officer Law in the Brattleboro PD. And so that was shared with Windham County Sheriff.
Correct.
And then at one point there was discussion that there was a thought the person who originally spray painted was the person who put the heart on the road later. Is that still a theory?
Yeah, it could be a theory. It could be the person that they described, who was that female, 56 years old, putting the heart out there, and that the spray painting could be done by another group, another individual.
So I had done some research and found out that the person who fixed his, in quotes, put the heart on the original message was not the originator of the BLM is racist message. So I just wanted to confirm that the person who did the original message was not the person who put the heart on the road. And doesn't meet the description.
So we're not sure of that, possibly. Right. So if you have any further information, please send it to our office so we can follow up on it. If you have any names, testimony, anything like that, please send it to us.
Okay. And my other question was, because of the nature of how many events there have been now in Windham County, I think the last time I read, there's been at least 7 or 8 communities that have had multiple incidences. And in some cases, Black and brown families are being targeted at their homes. So I'm wondering, is there a coordinated investigation as it relates to white supremacy activity in the region?
Well, I'm not exactly sure of anybody specifically being targeted. I know that we're all aware of what's going on now. And when a situation comes up, I know within my department, I can't speak for others, but in my department, when it comes up, we jump on it right away and we get as much information as we can. And we bring in other departments to help us, of course, with the case. So, we're doing our due diligence. It's on the top of our list. So when something does happen, we address it right away.
I was calling the Brattleboro PD, the Vermont State Police, and the Windham County Sheriffs because I was realizing there was different jurisdictions in different towns. And so I just wondered if there was a coordinated investigation.
Well, we all work together. Yes. So Windham County, of course, covers all of Windham County. State Police does also. And Brattleboro is, a large population that, we have close ties to that department. We're always down there. We're always talking with them. And so we work closely with them also.
And is it still a belief that people who support Black Lives Matter are the people who put the original spray paint on the road?
I am not sure of that. I can't answer that question.
I just wanted to clarify that some of this was being investigated because considering the patterns that are happening regionally.
Right. And like I say, when it does come up, we investigate it right away. It's assigned to a deputy, and we work together in all the departments.
Thank you for your work on this. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other questions related to Route 5 graffiti status?
I thought Eva had she had her hand up, Josh.
Oh, sorry. Eva, did you have a question?
Let me unmute her.
Eva, hang on, Eva, you're muted.
She has to unmute herself at this point.
Okay.
Eva, go ahead, Eva.
Well, the word all over Putney was that somebody saw the sign and went out and put the heart around it.
That sounds like.
So it was that kind of response. Yeah. So I think that enough about the heart. It was not me. It was not me. But clearly somebody that rode by and saw it and drew the heart around it to try to slow down the energy and also mark out the racist part.
Okay.
Thank you, Eva.
Yeah.
So, Eva, you are definitely causing feedback. So if you can mute yourself again. All right. Good. Thank you. Okay. So next we have Captain Samataro. You're welcome to stay if you want to, but don't feel like you have to. I think we're done with that for the moment.
Okay.
Thank you
very good. Very good. Thanks.
Thank you. So RT, oh no, I guess RT is not here. Alex, you're gonna step in for RT on SeVEDS annual update.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, everyone. My name is Alex Beck. I'm the Workforce and Education Program Manager with the BDCC and SeVEDS. We are reaching out to do our annual update, what we've been doing since the last time we were all together, which was town meeting day, but seems forever ago. And to just remind folks of the services and programs that we offer, answer any questions, and of course, hope to be included in the budget for next year's town meeting. So since we last met for town meeting day, of course, a lot has changed with our economy and world. The BDCC and SeVEDS immediately once businesses were shut down, we created a team of an outreach team for small businesses. So normally I work in the high schools with career education programs. Well, the high schools were closed, so I had some free time, I guess you could say. So there was about a team of 4 of us who spoke with over 375 businesses throughout the region. It was everyone who reached out to the state, who filled out the ACCD request for assistance, folks who reached out to us directly. We helped those employers and businesses understand what resources were available through the federal government and the state government. So I would say that's what we did for the first chunk of the year. We helped with businesses understanding what state grants to apply to as well. So there are different programs based on the kind of business and whether you have employees or don't have employees, whether you lost a certain amount of business or not. And so we provided technical assistance. We call it navigator support, so folks can understand what resources are available and how to find them. One good example is working with the Putney General Store. And, you know, they are one of the folks we work with for our entrepreneurial small business program and that loan program. And when things changed at the federal level around the USDA, we saw an opportunity to, you know, serve the Putney General Store in a better way because of the position we were in with our relationship with USDA and how we understood the state and federal changes happening with COVID. Any questions about those specific activities before I head into the more traditional presentation parts of the presentation?
So Alex, I have a question. What does the outlook look like for the future? You know, for like next year, 2021, with us still being in a COVID pandemic situation.
Yeah, so if I had a crystal ball, I'd feel a lot, you know, more comfortable answering this question. But I think what the strategy I know that we really need to take is to ensure that our businesses are ready to reopen if they haven't opened already, and that, you know, of course, that Vermonters have the resources they need either to find new work if they've been laid off longer term, or to continue to wait until more places reopen. But what we do know is that it takes longer and is more expensive to create new jobs from new businesses than it is to save jobs and protect jobs from existing businesses. So the number one priority is to help businesses weather the storm so that they don't shut down, so that when, whether it's sooner or if we see another spike, if we're talking about spring, that when it's okay to open, that those jobs still exist. They don't need to be, you know, regrown, if you will. It's about pausing more, and then of course hoping that the folks are still here to fill those jobs. You know, for the number of people where they've been working, where those jobs don't exist anymore, you know, the hospitality and leisure industry has been hit more than some others. That's really where we get into more of the job training that we've been doing, you know, for a handful of years. And it's understanding which are the industries and businesses that have been a little more resilient, and which ones haven't. So, you know, while we're losing jobs in, you know, hospitality and tourism and hope those come back, you know, we have a lot of opportunities in CDL drivers, whether that's, you know, truck drivers for companies or transportation companies. You know, manufacturing and healthcare are still, you know, still have vacancies. So it's really supporting folks who need to transition their careers, you know, over a short period or a longer period of time. That's also a priority. So it's, I can't say when and what the outlook looks like, but what we do focus on is these trends of, you know, what are the industries that are more resilient, and which ones are maybe less resilient, and how do we support those?
Thank you.
Other questions about that?
Not from me.
Great. So then, you know, there's of course the projects we've been running. I'll just give a quick reminder of those. They of course changed in some ways, but you know, high school career education programs that serve all of the Windham County high schools. Normally we have our sophomore summit, which was supposed to be in April, where all the sophomores in the county got together and did a day of career education. Of course, that didn't happen. So now we're doing a virtual version and sending you know, videographers to employers and videoing tours and having folks do interviews and on panels virtually. So a lot has changed with school, and so our school programs are changing quickly as well. But again, there are still jobs out there, and it's if they're open and safe, and students are prepared for them, that's a priority really in a tough economy. And I guess the last thing I'll mention is some of the regional, the Southern Vermont Economy Project, and some of those trainings that we've been putting on. Those continue, and around everything for like additional USDA grants. So the community facilities grant is also an opportunity for folks and municipalities looking to rehab or build and improve infrastructure. And so those traditional activities, those continue pretty regularly as well, virtually, of course, but where everyone is still available. All of our information is on our website and on our information we've provided earlier. So we're here and prepared to answer the call when any business is looking for support.
I have a question, Alex, about this is Lisa Papazian. What constitutes eligibility for the community facilities? What's considered a community facility?
Ooh, that is not a question I can answer off the top of my head.
Can you tell me where to find that answer?
Yes, absolutely. I will put that in my notes and make sure we can email that out. Of course, normally we have folders with brochures, and it's been, one of the issues we've been having is, how do we, send all the information virtually? But I will, I'll provide that information, hopefully in the minutes. Any other questions I can help answer?
Alex, can I just ask a question? Do you work with Deborah Boudreau?
Yes. I just put by the way, the link for the community facilities stuff in the chat. So there's a link to our information there. Yes, so Deb Boudreau is part of the Small Business Development Corporation, the SBDC. And in a different time, we were housed in the same building. So we shared office space with them, but they are a different statewide organization. They do similar things, but so we overlap a lot, but yeah, we're separate organizations, but do a lot of the similar things.
Eva, did you have a question for Alex? Hang on. Whoops, hang on, Eva. You gotta, there you go.
Okay, it's me again wanting to cut the funds to this organization because it feels to me like it's not equally distributed among the towns, and that Putney carries a weight that if it can't be distributed, it has something to do with the educational ability of the organization. And I'm not comfortable with us just giving a chunk of money to them rather than running it through with Senior Solutions and every other organizations. I've been uncomfortable since we first started this, and I'm still uncomfortable with it. And I know, I'm curious, how many people work for this outfit? Classically, sometimes what happens is it gets top heavy and there's a good idea and a lot of shiny brochures, but I don't know about the work. Yes, every time we talk about the general store, but there are other organizations around that need work or find work, and people find work in other ways. So I'm not happy about this organization. And I know the board tends to be, but sorry, folks, I'm not.
So
Alex, do you want to comment or?
Sure. Yeah, I think the regional nature of our organization is and you know, how and why we raised funds municipally. You know, I actually think that our most recent work is a great example of why it is a good investment in many ways, because you know, when Hurricane Irene happened, Tropical Storm Irene, it was what kicked off a lot of SeVEDS organizing and understanding that to act regionally and to build capacity and to build staff with that expertise was important. And so that's kind of where it started. And I think, especially with COVID, we know we're using disaster recovery programs again. And so it's that experience and that expertise and that capacity that we do share regionally, of course, but that has allowed us to manage the resources and bring support for yet not just the Putney General Store. So again, anyone can come to us. We did do outreach with hundreds of businesses, and I think that experience is what SeVEDS is, and that contribution from municipalities, which we ask, you know, all municipalities to provide the same amount. I think that's a great example of how having access to this resource as a region is valuable, and that you know, someone is looking out for businesses in more rural areas where you may not have access to this advice, these resources, you know, this understanding, you know, within the town. So that's, I guess, what I would say. But
thank you.
How many towns do you ask for, and how many towns give?
I can say, I don't know the exact number. I do know that it represents 75% of the entire county. I can, if you want to bear with me, I can bring this information up.
Let me just interject. I know that Westminster cuts it in half. A lot of places cut it in half. I'd like to see our budget cut in half when it comes to this organization, to do it for a couple of years and see what happens.
All right. Do others have questions or comments about?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, Howard Fairman.
Mr. Fairman, go ahead.
To clarify and in support of SeVEDS BDCC, economic development in Vermont is administered via 12 regional development corporations, of which SeVEDS BDCC is one. So it is the official organization that handles regional economic development, which for BDCC corresponds roughly, I believe not quite exactly, but roughly with Windham County.
Yep. Thank you, Howard. All right. Any other questions or comments related to SeVEDS?
Okay. I have one. I had to unmute for a second. Karen, what is our contribution every year? And are there other businesses besides the general store that you've helped during this time in Putney?
So I want to say it's like $8,106. Does that sound about right?
And yeah, that's exactly it. It's based on the population, $3 per person. I can absolutely follow up with some information about Putney businesses who are we were also able to serve. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. I can say that in 2020, I believe Westminster was the only community that amended our funding. So of the it's 14 towns, I believe, total. And again, they represent over 75% of the population of Windham County, are those who have funded us in the past.
All right, good. So yeah, if you could follow up, Alex, and let us know, just a letter to Karen or of numbers of businesses and or numbers of individuals who have sort of been through the organization. And I know that, well, in all of our social service groups that we donate to, and I know you guys have done this, but a review, sort of annual report is helpful for us. So if you can do that related to Putney, that would be great.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, we will put, of course, have all that information. We can I'll send it directly to Karen, and we'll have it, of course, ready for the following town meeting day.
Well, and we are coming up on budget season, so during our, consideration of budget stuff, if we have that information in front of us, that would be helpful.
Yes.
Yep.
Good.
Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you
so much,
Alex.
everyone.
All right. Our next item is the Putney Historical Society lease. Carolyn, I believe you are speaking to that.
Where's Carolyn? Is she still with us?
She was on.
She is still here with us. So can we just do a little snapshot? So about a year ago, Josh, we were at the table with a agreement of lease between the town of Putney and the Putney Historical Society for the second floor of the town hall. And so we went back and forth, and then we have a revised draft version of the contract now. And then a letter was sent back on February 24th. And the Historical Society had a concern about having a contract for 1 year, because if they spent the time to obtain grants to do renovations upstairs, and then the town decided later down the road at any point, if we were going to terminate that lease, that they would have to be looking for another home. So their goal, the Putney Historical Society's goal, is to have a permanent home for all their wares so they can open up to the community at some point and show them off. So when I reviewed the draft contract again, so on page 1, and I'm sorry that people can't see the information. I'm not very good about sharing my screen. And so in the draft lease, the term right now is 1 year. But then on page 2, the renewal of the lease, the term of this lease shall be automatically renewed on a year-to-year basis, unless the landlord or the tenant gives written notice of termination at least 180 days prior to the expiration of an annual term. So when I read that, to me, it's indefinite unless somebody in writing wants to terminate the lease. The Historical Society did ask in their letter, because it takes a lot of time and effort to obtain grants. And if the town were to break the lease, the Putney Historical Society would want to be recompensed for the time spent obtaining the grants. And they were asking to have that clause put within the lease agreement. So David and Josh, I will defer to you for comment. Unless, Carolyn, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, or anybody want to speak on behalf of the Historical Society?
Well, thank you for that synopsis, Karen. I just found out Monday that this issue was going to be on the agenda tonight, and we had a revised lease from the town, and so I sent it out to our board members, and I got some feedback. It seems like the consensus is that they would like to see it say that we would start with, let's say, a 5 or 10 year lease, and then it would be automatically renewed every 5 years. But we would still keep in there the 6-month notice, either by the town or the Historical Society if they wanted to terminate the lease. And we had a couple of other questions. It appears that the town would want the Historical Society to pay for its own electric, water, and sewer. Does that mean we would need to have an electric meter put in? And I don't know how, if there is such a thing as a water and sewer meter. Is that correct, that that's what you want?
I wasn't aware that that change had been made. Sorry, I just don't, that wasn't brought to my attention. No, well, my personal opinion on that would be that maybe there was a sort of contribution figured out. I mean, I'm guessing that your electricity, water, and sewer use would not be all that significant. So I think the expense of dividing it out wouldn't make sense. But maybe we think about, you know, sort of fixed rate per month kind of thing that would contribute towards that. And I don't know exactly what that would look like. We'd have to do a little analysis on that. But my own, again, totally personal feeling, I think that could be pretty minimal and probably cover the expenses you're referring to.
Yeah, and of course that doesn't include heat. If I don't think it has heat now, but
No.
if we were to put heat in, would we want to have a separate heating system from the rest of the town hall?
Yeah, I would suggest, I mean, as it is right now, I am guessing that the heating system is a forced hot air system, and it's in the basement, and it's about all it can do to keep the space that we have conditioned warm. I'm guessing the best way for you to do that would be to put in something called mini splits, which would be an electrical, separate monitored electrical, and that could probably be metered on its own somehow. I'm not sure how that would work, but I'm guessing that would be the most economical and easy to divide way of approaching that. But that's just
okay. That's something we could check into.
Or yeah.
Excuse me, that you would want us to have our own heating system of some kind. And Lisa from the Historical Society is also here. Did you want to say something, Lisa?
Yeah, thanks, Carolyn. I think that we would like to continue to have this discussion, maybe offline, with you guys, because I just want to go back to the context for this, because you are generously offering us to have the ability to basically rent for free the upstairs, but the upstairs has no access for ADA access. It has no plumbing and it has no heat, and it's in pretty bad shape. So the way we came up, you know, and it's not been used for many, many years. And I think the way we're approaching this is in exchange for basically free use of the upstairs, and hopefully a securely long period of time in which that we know that we can be there, we would hopefully partner with the town and act as your grant writers, essentially, to you know, do things like put in an elevator using the Access Mod program, which is only available to municipalities, or cultural facilities grants and other things that we might need the town to partner with us on as the owner of the building. I also imagine that the Historical Society there's the potential for the Historical Society to accommodate use of the space for an overflow meeting, for example, if it's made accessible. That the town might have an interest in actually having a restroom or at least an elevator to the second floor and maybe heat, so that I imagine we can work together on some of these things. I don't know the best way to put that sentiment or those ideas into a lease. I've asked actually Fletcher Proctor, who's willing to help us look at it and maybe has some suggestions. So I guess I would suggest that we continue this conversation, not in the meeting, but until there's an action. But I think this lease is is a start, but I think it needs to be a little bit different. And I hope that the town is interested in that partnership, because I think we can bring a lot to the table.
Yeah, no, I think that, certainly there has been a consensus of goodwill towards this concept of having the Historical Society up there. But I agree with you, Lisa. I think there are details, I think that the lease can be as simple as the lease can be, but we should probably figure out as many details related to that and have them at least in sort of an agreement. Whether those are lease related or how we do it, I'm not sure. But I think until we sort of have an actionable item, you're right. I think it makes sense for this to just be more of a back and forth. And I'm happy to work directly with you on that, Lisa, if you want, or however, whatever makes the most sense. And we can keep Karen obviously posted. I think the town definitely has an interest in this, or the select board has certainly pretty continuously expressed an interest in doing this. We just need to figure out the details. So let's keep working on it.
I have one question, Josh.
Yeah.
For Carolyn and Lisa. What's your time frame on, buttoning up conversations and having action items? How soon do you want to get this pulled together?
I think we'd like to get it pulled together soon, and probably would, if I can work with Josh on it, for example, we can work more perhaps quickly back and forth. We're currently paying rent at Next Stage, so and we're not even open. So I think we are anxious to get this resolved, and obviously it's going to be a long lead time before we can really, make some improvements.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Fairman, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, continuing or reacting to what the previous speaker said, I note that you are two organizations talking about one building, and everyone is in agreement that the building surely needs work. Perhaps you could focus, perhaps both organizations could focus on the building and what you each can do working together to improve the building.
Yes, I think that would definitely be the goal. And I think that I think that's the intention of both parties. I think that in some ways the lease is a little bit of a stumbling block because it's a legal document that we just need some arms around that as far as what the intentions are, and then have the lease fit within the bounds of what we all, again, sort of consider as a goodwill agreement. So, but I agree with you. I think that we all have an interest of helping the building for obvious reasons. And so that's sort of a separate item from the lease, but we have to figure out how the two fit together. All right, so Lisa, let's talk, and we'll bring this back around when we're a little further along. All right. If there aren't any further questions on the Historical Society lease, thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, Historical Society members, and we will try to keep it moving. Halloween children's event options. Ruby, I'm guessing maybe you're here and able to comment?
Yes. I am. I don't know if Tom's still here or, and if he is, he can break in.
Oh,
Okay.
here he is. He's back.
Okay. I've been working with Amy Nelson, who I think is also on the call, as a volunteer to think about different options for Halloween. And we presented 4 potential options that were all drive-through events to Tom to make sure none of them, brought up concerns for him. And we shared it with Karen, thinking that we wanted to make sure we heard the message at the last few select board meetings about Kimball Hill, the Kimball Hill event not being a go. And but we do know that if there's any events that affect traffic to the extent of affecting traffic flow, that would be a select board approval. So we presented 4 proposals. 2 of them would have required select board review and approval because they did have to do with changing traffic on a road to make it one way. But I think that Karen and Tom spoke, and I think that the easiest options and the ones that I think Tom was the least concerned about maybe were 2 that didn't require the town's involvement at all. They could be parent or community driven events. They could be something that we plan, we get volunteers for, we make happen, and Tom's and his staff and anybody else who, like a sheriff or something like that, would only be involved if there was a problem. I haven't spoken to Tom directly yet. He's kind of a difficult guy to pin down because he's got a lot going on, and Halloween is over a month away. But I do think that as one of the primary volunteers who will make the machine run, I do want to connect with him a little bit more about what that will mean. And so I don't know to what extent you all are interested in knowing about the details of the proposals. I don't know. I do know that, and I shared with Karen, the CDC just like yesterday or the day before came out with some guidelines around holidays and festivities. The first one on the list is Halloween, and those guidelines put festivities into different categories of low, medium, and high risk. I think that all of the events we proposed would be somewhere between they're pretty much in the low risk category. The highest risk item would be getting candy from the hand of a volunteer to a kid. And there are a bunch of ideas and thoughts around how to do that safely that involve, sanitizing your hands and possibly using a chute system or slingshot. There are different things that have been proposed. But I continue to feel that if we as a town already have an existing Halloween presence, I think we have the volunteer power to get some kind of event that's safe. And I think that we, for the most part, I think everyone would be very appreciative of that. I also think if we don't do something for this event, for Halloween, and plan something that can replace the door-to-door trick-or-treating, people are going to go door-to-door trick-or-treating. And so I don't say that because I think, oh, the poor children. I say that because I'm just being realistic, that people want to go out and they think, oh, it's fine, it's going to be great, it's fine, this is safe, and then are putting their hands into bowls and brushing up against people. I think you can do door-to-door trick-or-treating kind of safely, but the CDC doesn't think so. And so at this point, a drive-through event is what we are focusing on. What exactly it looks like, I'm not sure if you want those details, but I'm really hoping within the next 2 days, we nail it down to a point where we can announce it publicly, because I mean, if you are a parent and anywhere near Facebook, it's blowing up about Halloween right now. And we do have a Facebook presence of Halloween in Putney, and we've been pretty silent about it, but I want to make a pretty strong statement that is, as soon as we kind of ourselves have the go-ahead and we make sure that Tom is not going to put the kibosh on us in some capacity, I think we'd like to make an announcement of what the plans are.
I think that sounds fine. I mean, my opinion, and David it certainly can weigh in, but if you are not specifically asking us to close a road or change something, it doesn't feel like it really falls under select board purview. We're happy in whatever capacity we can, which I know is limited, but to promote whatever you decide to do on this platform, certainly. No, I think that if you and Tom can figure out details, and he doesn't, he gets a little grouchy around Halloween type things because, it's just the nature of him. But I think he won't give you a hard time probably, as long as it's not affecting public safety. But obviously we need to follow CDC guidelines, or I certainly feel we should. So I think it's great that you're organizing something, and if it, if there's anything we can do to help it be successful, please ask. But otherwise, kudos to you for all working on this, and I hope it's an excellent event.
Ruby, can I just clarify something? Because there were 4 proposals. 2 of them did ask for road closures, but still would be socially distanced, very safe according to CDC guidelines. So I think we still need to hear from Tom, because the initial objection to closing Kimball Hill was you couldn't guarantee crowds and things like that. But with a drive-through event, we've taken care of all of those concerns. So I guess I'm asking, why not revisit the Kimball Hill issue? It was one of the 4 proposals that we put through. Because if we can do something super socially distant, very carefully, as a drive-through only event, why can we not revisit that issue with Tom?
Karen, do you want to chime in, because you've actually had a conversation with Tom about it, so you have a better sense of his reaction to the proposal?
Tom is on here. Yeah.
Oh, good. Hi, Tom.
So,
hi, Ruby. Josh, okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Ruby, I don't want to mistake what you said, and certainly I don't take offense to it, but we just need to be clear. I have no intention at all of putting the kibosh to anything, unless there are specific things that just can't be adequately countered as far as public health. So, yep. The reality is anything that can realistically happen and go on and still meet what we're now starting to see for guidelines specific to Halloween related events through the CDC. I'm sure the state is going to come out with something within the next couple of weeks based upon what the CDC is saying. Then certainly it'll move forward. If it obviously, like Josh mentioned, if it does include closing a roadway or altering traffic on a roadway, then we need select board approval as well. But as long as we can as long as the requirements or the recommendations can be met, then everything's going to be good.
Yeah.
As long as I get plenty of candy out of it.
Yeah. That gets him out of the grouchy mood.
Right. So I think my feeling on this has really always been that, we presented 4 proposals, and I think that those are things that Amy and I kind of came up with, and I think ultimately we're happy with any of them. And I think that they all meet the CDC guidelines, understanding that those are guidelines. You know, the CDC has not come down and said everybody should cancel Halloween. They definitely put a major damper on door-to-door trick-or-treating. And I realize that we're spending a lot of time on this. You know, this is the third meeting I've been to. And I continue, and I'll say again, I do think that the town should, once we have a plan that we've coordinated, I do think that making a really public statement of encouraging people not to go to door would be the right move, as long as there's a safe alternative. And so my feeling is that the 4 proposals that we put forth, including the 2 that close roads to one-way traffic, they all meet the requirements of what I heard. I heard Tom's concerns. I see the CDC's guidelines. And so, you know, just to go back to what Amy said, I guess I'd understood from a conversation with Karen that Tom was, that maybe the preference was, or the 2 options that did not involve road closure were maybe what we should be focusing on. But if that's not the case, then I guess there is more of a conversation. And, you know, maybe we should be giving you details either verbally or share a map with you so you have a sense of what those proposals are. But I don't know, Karen and Tom, what you think about, you know, you've seen the proposals.
I would tend to defer to Tom on this. I think that we could try and hash this out now, but I'm not sure it's the time and place for it. You know, my own personal feeling is that we also just need to be respectful of people's anxiety levels in this time, and that if we're drawing, even if they're controlled crowds, but if we're drawing crowds near people's homes for any reason, that feels potentially intrusive to me in this moment. And I guess, you know, I don't know. You know, Kimball Hill feels to me like a downtown area, and that feels like it might be complicated to try and, but if it's all drive-through, maybe that's fine.
Can I just speak to that, Josh? So our proposal was close it to one-way traffic, have everyone come up Sand Hill, drive very slowly down or back up, volunteers on, you know, the side of the road, just tossing candy into cars really far apart. That's it. Not getting near anyone's house. Okay. It would all be volunteer based. And I think Ruby is so right in that if we don't make a decision really soon, it's going to start to get ugly. It's already gotten very ugly on the Brattleboro Parent Network page about Halloween. And we have to make a plan soon, because people are just going to be out there doing whatever they want if we don't make a plan.
David, you fine with deferring to Tom on this, and Tom and Ruby and Amy?
I'm fine with all that. The only question I have is that if you use the 2 options that don't involve making one-way roads, will that give you enough room, I don't know how else to say it, to get the number of people through that you think you need to get through in a period of time?
I mean, I think personally it creates bigger traffic issues. I know Ruby, we talked about that, just with people sort of trying to make tight turns in tight spaces. I mean, Ruby, what do you think?
I think that, you know, we made 4 proposals, and I think they all can work. And I think that the ones that don't require road closure, one of them I'm more hopeful about, and it's the most different of them. The other one has more of the tight turns. I think that the concern about the ones that don't involve road closure is, you know, if you envision a car driving down a road and pulling off somehow to get candy and then pulling back on. So every time you pull off and on to a shoulder or into a driveway or whatever, you create a potential traffic issue. Whereas if you partially close a road. You know, the first time we closed Kimball Hill, it was closed to one-way traffic only. And in this instance, it would be closed to one-way traffic to cars. And if someone didn't want candy, but they wanted to get down Kimball Hill, they can come. They just wave to the people and say, "I don't want candy, thanks." And there wouldn't be clamoring of kids on the street. They'd be in the cars. My preference has always been, and I think Amy and I as volunteers are on two spectrums of like, I really do think Amy's vision was a smaller closed road, smaller event, and actually just get it done. People come through, bam, 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 bam. And my vision had been a longer kind of a scavenger hunt that was a little bit less structured. And I think both of them can work. And so if the select board is saying defer to Tom, I think that, you know, we can work with Tom, you know, Karen and Tom, if I can get him because he's so busy, I think we can bang it out. And if there is a select board, if the preference is the one that closes the road, it'll come at the next meeting.
We will defer to Tom's recommendation.
Okay.
So, Ruby, to go with that, any chance you can give me a call tomorrow morning about 7:30?
Sure, I can set an alarm. My kids
Will that
do
work?
not get up early. but yeah, I can call you at 7:30.
Okay, all right, and we'll start to hammer it out, and we'll get it done within a number of hours.
Great.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ruby. Thanks, Amy. Fire truck bond bank financing determination. Karen, you talking to this, or is Tom talking to it? Karen, you're not on if you're...
Yep, I just noticed that it's muted. So Tom has some new information in your packet that he sent. We have the original quote from DeSorcy Emergency Products. And then I also have the Vermont Bond Bank schedule, but it's dated June 5th, so I don't have an updated one. But I'm going to go ahead and let Tom start with his presentation.
Okay, thank you, Karen. So just to recap where we were prior to July 1st. Obviously, we sent the specs out to bid. We received bids back. Actually, we received one bid back. The other two manufacturers opted not to bid on the truck. So the base bid from DeSorcy was $746,844. From that, we deduct E1 direct incentives, which came to a total of $147,849. And then we also deduct the trade-in value of the current engine, which came in at $90,000. So that gave us a final bid cost of $508,995, which was actually less than the budgeted amount that was approved for the truck. So talking with our sales rep yesterday, on Monday, we were scheduled to see a $37,000 increase July 1st. If we didn't sign a contract prior to then. So in talking with him on Monday, he let me know very clearly that DeSorcy has opted, because of our long-standing working relationship, and the fact that they want to do everything they can to help us get this done. They are waiving that $37,000 increase. They're putting that off until January 1st of 2021. So the original bid price of $508,995 stands currently. if things are held off until after January 1st, then we'll see some significant increases as I laid out in my memo. Between the increases in the cost of the truck from the manufacturer and the decrease in trade-in value at that point, because at that point that truck is another year older. It doesn't seem like 1 year would make a big difference in this case, but in the world of fire apparatus, it does. So if we waited till that point, we would see a net overall increase of $86,000. And then after that, then that would take us to July 1st of 2021. And then after that, all bets are off as to what the increases would look like. So as I indicated in my memo, at this point, I'm respectfully asking for board approval for us to pursue this and order the truck and sign a contract.
Karen, what's the bond bank deadline?
So I will have to start the application process by November 1st. And once we submit, we'll be committed. And the awards go out in December. So right now, based on borrowing approximately $510,000, the net interest is 1.37%. The highest payment, which would be in the beginning of the loan, would be approximately $57,237. And the first payment, we might see it in the spring, which is, we'll have 2 interest payments right up front. And then in the fall of 2022, we would see the first payment of about $57,237. And this is a 10-year loan. So the interest rate may have fluctuated. I don't have a current rate right now.
All right. Well, we've got a little bit of time as far as the bond bank is concerned. Tom, are there other, beyond that application process, are there other, we still don't know what our totals are for tax incoming. We haven't closed out the September tax collection.
I can give you that number, Josh.
Well, we know what it is, but it's not finished, right?
It's not finished, but we just paid the school $1.2 million. So let me see if I can find. Hold on a minute. I think we've collected like 2.4 right now.
Out of how much?
We have another like 600,000 to collect for the first installment. Now, mind you, Josh, that $800,000 of that property tax is payments for the second and third installment.
Okay. So some people are just paying. So, I mean, I continue to have the same concerns that I had before of going into an economically challenging time. And I feel like, I don't feel like I have any clearer sense of that now than I did 3 months ago. And I hesitate to, I just went through this exercise myself with my own van the other day because I'm looking at some expensive repairs, and I went to Keene Chrysler and priced out a new one, etc. And by when I was all said and done with it, I said, I just can't justify doing this right now. I don't know how we proceed. I guess, another question, Tom, and I don't, we may have already asked you this. I know I've asked you this in various different ways, but I guess one question I really have is, it seems like a tremendously expensive piece of apparatus for a town the size of Putney. And I know that there's reasons why it ends up to be that. But what if based on, and I know last time it didn't work out well for us because this is the engine we're talking about trading, but what if we were to say to you, Tom, how about finding something in the 350 to 400 range? Is that possible? Not possible? Why do we need what seems to be a more expensive piece of apparatus than a town like Putney necessarily would need? Or am I just outdated in my thinking on that?
Well, with all due respect, Josh, I think a large piece of it is in fact being outdated. Again, with all due respect, certainly, as I've said before many times during all these discussions, I know what the town of Putney has always been used to, and that's fire trucks that cost in the area of $210,000 to $240,000 ish.
Yeah.
In today's world, that's not reality anymore, and one of the big reasons simply is the cost associated with metal, steel, aluminum, stainless steel, and that's what these things are. So when we started to look at some different things, and we started to get some initial numbers, that was sticker shock to us as well, because we didn't know. So unfortunately, the reality is that's what trucks cost. Now, in saying that, like we've been honest and upfront about right from the beginning, in order to avoid the predicament that we're in now, in the predicament we've been put in the past, this truck is built, for lack of a better term, built heavy.
Right. Yeah.
The overall, the big picture goal is, well, let me back up just one. Just like Engine 2 was built heavy when we bought that in 1994.
Right.
So with Engine 2, what we were able to do, and it's worked very, very well for us, and it's saved the town a tremendous amount of money, is 5 years ago, we refurbed that.
Right.
We did a full refurb because the truck was able to handle the chassis. The truck itself was able to work for that. We're applying that same concept to this truck. So we spend a little more on the front end. And the concept is that truck will last us a solid 20 years with virtually no issues, just like Engine 2 did. And then at 20 years, we do a full refurb on it at roughly a third of the cost of a new truck. And we run it another 20 years, just like we're going to do with Engine 2. Now, in saying all that, as I indicated in my memo, and I honestly, it's because of what the truck is and what we were asked / what was necessary for us to do at the time that we bought it. We're starting to have some problems with it. So when it comes to, like, and Josh, you've heard this from us before over the years, things get to a point where they start nickel diming.
Right.
And unfortunately, in today's world, we're not talking nickel dimes. We're talking dollars, half dollars.
Yeah.
So that's what's starting to creep up on us. There are some things that,
right.
There's a list of things that need to be done. It's all related to the chassis and to the computers on the truck. Depending upon what happens with the purchase of a new truck, there are some things that we will do what we need to do to not spend the money on those things. There's some things that we will have to do, regardless. So that's where that's at. Now, if you were to say to us, we'll give you $230,000, respectfully, we would just turn away and we would not buy a truck because it would not be worth it. And we're proving that's being proven out to us now. So to hope for a different outcome, getting something that just won't last, then that's not going to be worth it to anybody.
David?
Tom, can you tell me, besides the springs, what's going on in the chassis and what's happening with the computer? I thought we already worked on replacing one of the main computers in it not long ago.
We did.
If you just give me a clearer idea, that'd be great.
Yep.
Thanks.
We did. This truck has 13 computers in it that run various things, and that's to include one for the motor. Without looking it up right now, we replaced one of the computers for the chassis, and that was back in the March-April time frame. Anyways, because of some corrosion-related issues within wiring connections, we're starting to realize some other issues with other computers. Again, because of the way this truck is built, that being one of the reasons that it was so inexpensive at the time. These are problems that start to creep up on you 12, 15, 16, 17 years old. So we're starting to realize those computer and wiring problems. As far as the chassis, I've got a list. Where is it? Here it is. The rear springs, helper springs are starting to have a problem. The drag links on the front end. We've got some brake problems that are starting to creep up. We're going to need not some frame work as far as frame integrity work done, but we're going to need some frame painting done, which is going to require us to remove some components off the truck, off the frame. We'll do what we need to do for corrosion protection. There's a steering box issue that isn't a big issue right now, but it could turn into one, and we'll obviously be monitoring that and keeping an eye on things. There's a paint related issue that we're going to need to get taken care of. That's one of the things that if it's decided that we will be allowed to purchase a new truck, that's one of the things that we will not do because we won't need to.
So first thing I'd like to say is, like Josh said earlier, I don't feel like I know any more than I did earlier, and I'm pretty anxious because the world's in the state it's in, and I don't know that this is the right time to invest in a new truck. I do understand that it's a great gift that this company offered to waive the increase. That's a great thing. I understand probably as well as anybody in this conversation about how vehicles fall apart. I would love to be able to have a new truck, but I got to think about this for a while. I'm not sure this is the time, in my opinion, but thank you for all your information and all your work.
Yeah, I think my feeling would be I'd like to table it at least until we see how the September tax payments filter out, and so we can do some comparative analysis to see how that is compared to previous years, because I think that's going to be maybe a little bit of an early indicator, but I'm also aware that we need to make a decision fairly readily if we expect Karen to have an application to submit in November. So I think I'd like, yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Just to clarify, in case anybody, because honestly I had kind of lost sight of this at one point. Once we sign a contract with the manufacturer, there is no money exchanged for 1 year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, it's the delivery of the truck is anticipated 1 year out. So from the date the contract signed, 1 year later, we have to pay them.
Right.
With the bond bank, and Karen, correct me if I'm wrong. With the bond bank, we're not liable for a payment for a year after that, after the bond is taken out. Is that right, Karen? Or maybe the interest payment?
It's the interest payments first, Tom, and we'll see them. We'll see two of them right off.
Okay.
And then the first payment will probably be like November the following year. So
of November of 22.
I think that's right, Tom. But
well, no, see, if we would have gone in spring, it would have been 21. So because we're going to get awarded in December, so it could potentially be in 22. Yes.
Well, we should figure that out. I'm gonna ask that we table this until our next meeting, and Tom will try not to drag it out any longer than we have to, but until we've seen those September numbers.
No, I get it. I truly appreciate the position that you're in. I get it.
Yeah.
Right.
And again, not to. We all, I think it's prudent for us to all keep in mind as well what these dollar figures are going to look like in 5 years when this truck has to go, and we're back into that proverbial corner again, like we were when we replaced this last time. And I honestly, I don't even want to know what those numbers are going to look like.
Yeah. So can I clarify too on the loan payments, Josh?
Yeah.
So from the schedule dated June 5th, we would have had our first interest payment on 11/1/2021, and then a second interest payment on 5/1/2022. And then a real payment, our first payment would have been November 1st, 2022.
That's all based on if we had done the spring round.
Right.
Okay, so we can assume that that's all pushed off roughly 6 months, but
right.
We should clarify that.
So you are right, Tom. It looks like probably 2022 would be the very first payment, like principal and interest.
I mean, I do have to say also that, 1.37% is a remarkably low rate. I mean, we should keep that in mind, because the chances of us having a rate like that 5 years, I think the chances are good that we have a rate like that 1-2 years from now, but 5 years from now, I think it's pretty limited, because I think that climate is going to shift. Right. But anybody's guess, who knows? But
is there anyone else on the meeting that wants to say anything regarding the fire truck?
I have one more thought too, and that the whole global environment may change. We have an election coming. We don't know how that's going to affect trade globally. We don't know how that's going to affect prices of things. So it's, I know we can't really wait till then, but that's something we ought to keep our eye on too.
Yeah, no, and that unfortunately that could go. I mean, the election could go either way, but the effect on tariffs, et cetera, could also really swing widely one way or the other. It's really, and the effect on inflation, et cetera. It's really hard to predict any of that, unfortunately. But all right, well, we'll keep talking, Tom, and thank you for all your ongoing effort.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, have a good night.
You too.
Good night, Tom. All right, so our next item is the road painting policy status. We have learned from discussion with council that it is not the recommendation of council for us to adopt a policy. So we will later in the meeting and under other business, we will hopefully adopt a resolution which allows for, it's basically somewhat redundant of the resolution we already adopted for the for approval of the Black Lives Matter mural, but it does contain language allowing it to be specifically painted on Westminster Road. So so that's sort of in lieu of a road painting policy, which was recommended against because the possibility that it would open numerous conversations of numerous people wanting to to paint murals. And I think our intention is that this is, for all practical purposes, a one-time, very important statement to be made, and we are endorsing that, but not opening up a policy in order to entertain a variety of options for road painting. So Putney Mountain Main Trail repair. Sorry, yes, go ahead, Mr. Fairman.
Mr. Chairman, a question about the agenda item we were on before you announced. Sorry, I was off on the timing there. But
that's okay.
You are saying that you're going to present a resolution under other business, right?
Correct.
Now, the resolution authorizes the payment, the painting of the mural?
Correct.
Now, what is the difference then between a resolution and what you otherwise would have done? Because in both cases, you are authorizing an action to happen that is within the jurisdiction of the town of Putney.
That's correct. The main difference is if we were looking at a painting policy, well, I think there's a lot of nuance in the discussion, but the policy that was presented for potential adoption was based on Montpelier's policy that they adopted. And but from council's advice, that policy was much more in-depth and more complicated than we needed or probably wanted for our application, and invited a more, basically it was establishing a long-term policy as opposed to agreeing to a one-time action. And so via the resolution, we're agreeing to a one-time option, but we are not adopting a policy to essentially state that this will be an ongoing discussion within the select board. I don't know whether that clarifies.
It does. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at Salman and Nostran's opinion, which became a public document at your previous meeting where you discussed it. Their conclusion is the town of Putney does have authority to control the roads and authorize street murals.
Correct.
However, it is our professional judgment that the proposed policy as currently drafted is not ready for adoption by the Putney Select Board.
Correct.
And I'm going to skip over a bit here, but then they say additional criteria regarding acceptable paintings, together with a more consistent approval process, will assist the Select Board in preventing infringements on citizens' constitutional rights, by which they are referring to the First Amendment rights, which is the prior section of their legal opinion.
Correct.
So I'm wondering, are you actually bypassing their concerns without addressing them?
I don't believe we are. I've had a lot of conversation with these folks over the last couple days, last couple weeks and couple days, but no, I don't believe we are. I think that their concerns were really specifically related to adoption of that policy, and therefore they were concerned that if we were going to adopt a policy similar to that, that we would want to tailor it more specifically to the town of Putney, because it was much broader than what we would want. But it was also their legal opinion, and I asked them specifically for an opinion about it, that a resolution was sufficient, that we didn't technically need a policy. So what you're pointing out is accurate, Howard, that if we were adopting a policy or this policy as presented, we would be ignoring their concerns. The agreement, the opinion from legal counsel was that having a policy was unnecessary and a resolution was sufficient and a whole lot less complicated, essentially for the reasons and the concerns that you're pointing out. So my general sense, and I think that where we came to with legal counsel, was that this was an appropriate way to cover rights as far as amendment rights are concerned, but not open up a much broader conversation about long-term. I think that also by adopting a one-time resolution, we have not closed the door to others who possibly would come forward. I think that if we adopted a policy, we would be leaving that door wide open. In this circumstance, we are not closing it, but not leaving it wide open either, if that makes sense.
Well, you always make sense, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
You owe me for that. The key here is the First Amendment, of course.
Yes.
Because as soon as one sign is painted on a street, there is every reason to expect that someone may say, we would like to paint another sign on the street for whatever purpose, because the public forum has been open for this purpose. Now, once this has been done, the legal opinion quotes a particular bit of case law, which it says, if a regulation on speech does not provide government decision makers with objective workable standards, the risk of unfair or inconsistent enforcement and even abuse is self-evident. Now, I'm addressing this from the standpoint of avoiding controversy. If we can make it really clear up front exactly what is being authorized, and therefore, by extension, what else would be permitted under the First Amendment, it may avoid a lot of trouble later on. That's why I'm raising the point now. Not that I'm objecting, not that I'm speaking for or against putting a sign on the street, but looking at the conditions that you are setting, especially given that you have decided to do this with a resolution under other business, which addresses only a specific instance, while the First Amendment, of course, addresses every instance of public speech.
Yes. The only reason it ended up in other business is because we didn't get the final copy of it until about 2 o'clock this afternoon. So we couldn't effectively warn it under actionable items for select board items because we didn't know exactly what it was going to look like. So I guess
Can I make a comment?
Yes, please.
All right. So back on August 18th, the board did approve the siting of a Black Lives Matter mural painting on Westminster Road in front of the Putney Central School. And that motion passed unanimously. What I can't even say the word. And then on September 2nd, the road painting policy was on the agenda, and right. Josh, you had moved to approve that Putney street painting policy contingent on approval of council.
Correct.
And that motion passed as well. So,
but then council's recommendation was not to adopt that policy. So,
correct.
Because of the complexities it might open. But I guess I would say, Mr. Fairman, to your query in this, anybody would still be, we have not closed the door on somebody coming to approach the town. Our resolution, I think, is sufficiently specific, and I don't know whether, Karen, you can forward that to Mr. Fairman if he doesn't have it, but I think it is specific enough to this instance that it addresses it being this instance, and that others, we don't invite others to be considered, but of course they will be considered because that's a First Amendment right. So we would absolutely consider them through the same process we've considered this.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I simply wish to bring up this matter so that we could have a public discussion about it, which we have had. I would caution just one thing, and that is, you said you would not invite other people to make similar proposals. You're not, as a government under the First Amendment, in a position to invite speech, and therefore to say if speech has not been invited, you will not hear it. Yeah. The First Amendment says that we can simply speak and government has to listen. It is not forced to act, but it does have to listen.
Absolutely. No, and I'm not sure in what context I said that, but I definitely was not intending to imply that we were not willing or interested in listening. We definitely are willing and interested to listen. You know, whoever the board who was sitting at that time would have to analyze whether it was appropriate in the moment, and that would be a board decision for whatever board was sitting then. But no, if I implied in any way that we would be opting not to hear other people's inquiries, that I misspoke, and I apologize, and thank you for pointing that out. And
well, I wasn't necessarily saying, Mr. Chairman, that you misspoke. I was simply clarifying, and thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for clarifying, because I didn't mean it that way if I said it that way. So, all right. So, if there's nothing else on the road painting policy status, then if we can move on to Putney Mountain Main Trail repair.
So Jordy came to me regarding the main trail on Putney Mountain, and it needs some repair. And I spoke to Brian because I thought perhaps we could get the material from the gravel pit, but that's not the case. Jordy did have an estimate about for about $1,000 if we were to buy the material from like Cold River or Mitchell. So I think at this point, we're going to table this. And because I don't know if there's funds, I'd have to look at the budget to see if there were funds. And then the select board would have to decide if they wanted to move ahead and provide the material for the repair of the main trail. So what it entails is 17 yards of stone, like 1 inch to 1.5 inch, and then 10.2 yards of sure pack. So we have a rough estimate of $1,000, and we don't have the material that we can obtain from the gravel pit to do the repair.
I'm not aware of us having contributed something like this before. Why typically the Putney Mountain Association does its own fundraising for trail maintenance.
But it's our property, the main trail is on.
Okay,
yeah.
That's what I wanted to clarify. So this is essentially sort of the entrance area, Karen? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of traffic up there, and with COVID, people have been up there using the trails, and in the area where it's really wet, people are walking around the bridge and you know, the platform or whatever's out there, the skids, and they're making the trail wider and wider. So they wanted to go in and put the material down and put the sure pack on top so it would stabilize it and hopefully dry it out a little bit, and people would stay on the main trail. But it is on the town-owned part of
portion.
Putney. Yep.
Okay.
Can I say
and-
something?
Yeah.
This is Vera. I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but I'd be willing to give the $1,000 for that material.
Oh, well,
That
thank you.
that's
Sarah, for
very
that
that's
offer.
very generous. Whether that's a Putney Mountain Association donation or not, I'm not 100% sure.
So I don't know, maybe I could talk with Karen about that offline. That's fine with me. I just want to, I'm happy to contribute toward keeping that trail open and accessible.
Thank you. And I would guess there would be others that would do the same. So how we would approach that, I'm not sure. But
I also, can I just say one more thing? Sorry, Josh. I
Please,
also would be happy to volunteer to do the work with people.
Yeah.
I'm sure Jordy, do you know Jordy Barra?
I don't.
He's one of our listers. He's often in the office. Jordy Heller. He does a lot of the sort of organization of Putney Mountain Association trail work, and he'd be a good person to touch base. And you could touch base with him through the lister's office, if nothing else. I don't.
Okay, so I think what I'll do first is talk with Karen. I'll get in touch with you and then follow up from there.
Yes, Barrow, we can work together and I'll get you connected, okay?
Great.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Karen, I'm also wondering, is there a specific reason we can't provide that from our gravel pit?
We just don't have it. So most
We don't
of
have the type of material.
Right. So the stone we don't have. So Brian has bank run down there. So what happens is the blasted rock is crushed up and then it's
right.
So it's all mixed in there together, but we don't have the specific stone, the 1 inch and the 1 1/4 and the 1 1/2. Sorry. Yeah. We just don't have it.
Bank run might be sufficient. I don't know who spec'd that material, but Brian, it might be worth having it. And I don't want to negate this very generous offer from Barra, but if we could make it more affordable by providing at least some of the material, that might make sense. So let's just double check that, because somebody may have said, it's got to be 3/4 to 1 1/2 crushed, when in fact a bank run would be just fine. I'm not sure what the application is. So
yeah, I talked to Jordy about the bank run because it has more dirt in it. And
right.
I feel that was going to be sufficient enough. They need the gravel, so they have a solid bottom.
Sounds good. I just thought I'd bring it up if it was a possibility.
Yeah. But that's okay. It's a good question.
Yeah. All right. So town manager's report. So first tax, property tax first installment, Karen, we already sort of covered that, but if you got anything to add to that conversation.
No, but I just want to clarify one thing, because so we need to collect $468,734.54 by Friday. So property taxes first installment is due September 25th, this Friday.
By 4 o'clock, it needs to be in the office by 4 o'clock, correct?
That's right. You can drop it off in the front door. You can pay online with credit card, debit card, e-check, ACH. Well, ACH is too late now because we can't get you in the system in time. But I just want to say that Melissa Harlow's done a really good job about setting up various options for payment. And you can use it for utility, you can use it for property taxes, dog licenses, land records. It's working out really well. And I'm impressed on how many people are actually using those forms of payment. And, traffic, some people do come to the door and they want a receipt, which is fine, So we are monitoring the front door for payments, but all in all, I think we've done really well. As far as delinquent taxes, Josh and David, I just wanted to let you know we're still out $63,513.02. And of that 63,000, $47,449.43 is for 2019. So a big portion of it is from last year's taxes. So I will monitor this as we go along, especially as we get into the budget season too, because I think we need to be very cautious about spending.
I just got a text from David that he keeps losing his internet connection.
So he can call in.
Oh, okay. Do you want to text him that, Karen? Just let him know, because technically we don't have a quorum if we don't have David in the meeting with us. So we certainly can't take any action.
I don't know if there's any. There might be one.
Is the call-in number on the?
Yes.
It's on the.
It's on the login.
Okay, I'll text him back.
Yeah, I'm doing the same.
There is a call-in number on the login email.
So I'm going to continue with my report so we can
yeah, sounds good.
move forward. So the financial annual audit is in process, and Alyssa will have to upload some more information, but it appears like November that we will get together. It might be remotely, but we are going to get together, and we should have everything to the auditor. So hopefully, November, December, hopefully by December, we'll have a final report, or a draft anyway, for the select board. The source protection plan renewal status is ongoing, and I'm working with Diana Butler. She's with the Vermont Rural Water Resource. She is actually going to make all the revisions, which is good for me because that takes a little bit off of my plate. But she's done her site visit and everything, and I've read through the source protection, and I had certain questions, and her and I are going to meet together and go over those. And as far as the water and the sewer rates, the timing of this plan is really good because I can actually look at the allocation for water and sewer, and I had a lengthy call with Chris Hayes with Simon's Operations, and he explained, especially for the sewer, Josh, with the flat rate versus the meter rate, there is a factor involved in the cost that is currently being assessed for sewer. And we need to determine the use over a 3-year period, and we cannot account this year because of COVID, because it's an unexceptional year.
An anomaly, yeah.
Yep. So I got to go back 3 years and do an analysis, and then I'll talk to Chris because there's a formula to get to that factor. So right now it could be like 1.5 or 1.6, but realistically it might have to be like 2.0 or higher,
So that analysis will tell us that.
Yes, and then we can figure out, where we need to be. And I just want to remind the board also that water and sewer is user fee based. So any increases in the budget the user fee should see an increase or a decrease, depending on where the budget is.
Right.
So if we're running a deficit, then I need to be adjusting either the water or the sewer to pay for the bond and all the operating costs. So, and I haven't done that in the last 2 years. We haven't had an increase since we took the $40,000 out of the budget as a line item. So I will keep you posted on that.
Okay. Sounds good. David, just so I think Karen and I both texted you, but somebody put in the chat, there's a call-in phone number. If you lose internet connection again, if you want to call in, there's a call-in phone number listed in the chat. You might want to jot down.
So social bias employee training is ongoing. I had a phone conversation with Mary Gannon, and she's going to reach out to her counterpart, Dottie Morris, over at Keene State College, and she is going to prepare a proposal for training.
Good.
So,
good. I also have spoken to Mary a couple times now, and specifically about spending a little bit of time with David and I just thinking about sort of how we proceed in our approach to this. And she expressed a clear willingness to do that. We haven't arranged a time, but she's going to, I basically said, we need a little bit of guidance in how we go forward on approaching this at right now, just David and I, but the select board level at large. And so I've been exploring that with legal counsel and with the VLCT and now with Mary as well. So just so people are aware, we're looking at that at the select board view as well.
Great.
Can I ask a question, or should I wait till the next session?
No, you can. That's fine.
This is Bara again. I would love to also get social bias training. Is there any way to broaden it to the community?
It's a good question. I'm meeting with Mary sometime in the next couple of days, and I will find that out and see whether, it might be, obviously everything's a little complicated right now with COVID, but yeah, townwide. That would, when we were talking earlier about the statements related to needing education, about Black Lives Matter and the importance of it. That's part of my conversation with Mary also, is just how we approach that at a town level. So once I know something, Bara, I will figure out how to get in touch with you and let you know.
Great. And I just have one thought on that I would be content if it were like a Zoom thing to not necessarily interact in it, but just be able to observe it.
Yeah. No, and there may, the other thing I wondered about, and I don't know how this would work, but there may well be sort of introductory lectures or something along those lines that she could point us towards that we could make available through the library, or otherwise I'm not sure. So I will inquire and I will try and get that information to you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
So one other item that was not on the agenda, but I do need to mention, it's very important. So we were just awarded a grant from the state of Vermont for digitizing our land records, and it is in the amount of $20,478.49, and that is the cost of the COTS system that the select board approved the last meeting.
So that's, and thank you, Karen. I think that was you and Jonathan who worked on that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I pushed Jonathan, and he was able to, come up with, a contract with COTS, and he was satisfied with their service. And I said, okay, we're going to go for this grant. And the fact that Jonathan had 15 years of land records already scanned in was a benefit to get this grant. So we are going to go 40 years back, and we just received equipment today from COTS system.
Right.
So we have a couple deadlines, but by mid-October, I think we might be up and running, but we'll see how it goes. So I'm very excited. That was a big feather in our hats, people.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Congratulations. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And that's all I have for on my end.
Okay. Eva, you have a question. You're on mute, Eva.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm wondering how many people have rushed forward to volunteer to be on the select board?
If silence is an indicator, then you're getting an indicator. No, it's something I was going to bring the topic up, Eva, because I actually have had a couple people that I've had conversations with that have, aggressive might be a strong term, but have very clearly sort of said to me, what are you doing in order to fill this position? And yes, it is mine and David's responsibility to appoint somebody to this position, but I'm not sure it's my responsibility to go out and find somebody for it. So right. I hear what I think you're saying, Eva, and I want to put a clear message out that anybody and everybody who's interested in this has been posted on iPutney as well in other places that there is a vacancy and that we need to fill it. My understanding is that statutorily there is not a tremendous time pressure to do that. There was an allotment of time for the posting of it, but I don't have I've had people say, well, where are you looking for people and what are you doing? And it's like, well, honestly, I have a whole lot of other things in my life too. And so if there's somebody, I would encourage everybody who is on this call to think about who might be a good select board addition, because we really need somebody. And I think David and I are quite clear that it should not be a white male. And I'm guessing that most people will agree with us on that. We obviously, for reasons of discrimination, would never say it can't be a white male, but I think our preference would be for it not to be. And so anybody who is qualified and interested, and really all you have to do to be qualified is to be a resident of Putney. There may be an age limitation, but I'm not 100% sure about that. And that's about it for qualifications. So residents of Putney, if you're looking to, and it's sort of an opportunity because it's an interim position right now. And for anybody who's wondered about being on the select board, an interim position is a nice thing because instead of signing up for a 3-year term, which I think David can vouch for the fact is not an insignificant commitment. A 5-month term allows you to dip your toes in the water and say, oh, yeah, maybe I'll run in March, because that's how it would work, is it would be filled until March, at which time there would be an election. And
I want to say, I'm going to interrupt. I want to say something. I so appreciate the work of David in the community and what you do for us in the community. You have a congregation, and I feel the same with you, Josh. And it's the kind of work that you have to look and pay attention to see what you all are doing personally. Now, what you do on the select board, I appreciate also, but what you do personally, your commitment to the working people in Putney and to all people in Putney, and I so appreciate that. And I want to thank you both, because I've been the recipient of both those, whether it's put in a disability shower for me or David taking my 98 Chevy Prism and putting fenders on it. I'm telling you, I do appreciate it. It's not a small thing, gentlemen, and I so appreciate it. So thank you. And I also appreciate Karen for how you've helped me negotiate and move through the town. Thank you.
Well, and thank you, Eva. And I know you are a strong bell ringer for the town of Putney, and getting the word out that we need a select board member. I know you're already working on that, but thank you for bringing it up today. And anybody and everybody, please bring names.
Well, I know Gail Haynes would be great for 5 months.
Eva, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. I had no intention of getting involved in this job whatsoever, and did it because I feel a commitment to this community, and I thank you for recognizing all the things you just recognized. I appreciate that very much. Most days feel like I'm in over my head, but show up and try to do my best every day. And I love this community and the people in it. Thank you for what you just said. That means the world to me. Thank you.
And I'm just going to say one more thing to punctuate the reality of getting select board members. The reason David is a select board member is because he got 16 write-in votes in the last election. There was nobody on the ballot for the last election for a select board member. These are not easy positions to fill. And David it was then an option for him to accept that write-in vote for him. And
it's called drafted. It's called drafted. He was drafted. And when we talk about having 5 people on the board, I'd love to see it. I don't see anybody coming forward in this wonderful, progressive community. Where are those activist people?
This is Bara. I was interested in maybe filling that interim role, but I'm very clear that I do not want to be in a full term. So I didn't know if you guys would even want that. I do not want to run for the next, to do 3 seats. I'm 3 years. I know that.
Thank you, Bara. I think that given what I said before about it being a great opportunity for somebody to test it out, I probably would, if we find somebody, and I don't want to say no, because I think it would be great.
Bara, hang in there.
Yeah, but we'll be in touch about that.
That's great.
Somebody put in the chat, not a white male, but given the reasons Laura left, what's being done to encourage a female to participate? I don't know who posted that. And actually in a public meeting, I can't really say anything about it if I don't know who put it in. H? Who's listed as H?
Well, it doesn't matter. The thing is, we know that we want a good person, and sound like Barry, you could do 5 months, but why don't you get in touch with them and talk about it? In the meantime, I'll be beating the pucker brush trying to find somebody.
Yeah.
I want to say I'm glad to hear that, Barry.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
It occurs to me that having trouble finding people to serve on the select board is uncommon in Vermont towns. So it might be worthwhile giving some consideration to how come in Putney people are not that motivated to serve on the select board. Is there some sort of obstacle that could be removed?
I don't know. I'm interested, Howard, in where are you getting information that it is not common? Because that's not my impression. I'm not disagreeing with you. I just don't know.
I simply read the newspapers about what's going on at town meetings around the state, and you generally find that there's that the available positions on the ballot for select board have candidates.
Have been filled.
But Howard, you don't know who's been beating the bushes in that town. And I know that in this case, you're wrong, at least for a couple of towns that are close by. People go out and beat the bushes, and that's how. Why don't you get yourself out there and beat the bushes and find somebody? Come on, Howard.
Well, on the contrary, addressing myself to the previous speaker, the question is not whether somebody beat the bushes and, as you said earlier, drafted someone to serve on the select board. The question is, how come people do not simply want to serve on the select board? For example, yourself.
Yeah. No, it's an excellent question, Howard.
Yeah, and I've served enough in organizations where I do well to do what I'm doing, Howard, just like you.
So I just want to point out to people, there are a couple people in the chat. There are 2 things in the chat. The one I said, H and concerned citizen. This is an open meeting. If you want to have a voice in this meeting, you need to identify yourself. I believe that's open meeting law standard. Howard, correct me if I'm wrong, but Anonymous people on chat won't be recognized.
Mr. Chairman, you are correct, because at an open meeting is an open meeting in every way.
Correct. So if you want to identify yourself and ask a question, that's fine, but otherwise. All right.
Josh, I have
Yes.
a question.
Go ahead, Liz.
I know you're having trouble finding people to be on the select board. If you had 5 members instead of 3, would that cut down the workload?
I don't believe so, no. I mean, you know, I can't answer that question accurately, Liz, because I haven't been on a 5-person select board. I mean, you know, we have a very capable town manager, and even previous to Karen being here, we have had capable town managers, and that is what allows me personally to do my work. I mean, historically, select board members, previous to the more sort of widespread of the adoption of a town manager system in Vermont, select board members took a lot more of that load on themselves personally. I couldn't possibly do this if we didn't have a town manager. I worry that having a 5-person board would be hard to fill, but I'm not sure it would change. And I don't have an accurate answer for you because I haven't been on I haven't been on the type of board, but I don't think it necessarily would decrease the workload. I think the time commitment is largely just a matter of the circumstances that present themselves. You know, I mean, there's always a lot to do, and all of us who are on this board, as I'm sure you experience on the school board, you know, people choose things they're interested and willing to participate in and decide not to in other things. And maybe with 5, that would get wider spread, but I don't know. I'm not sure whether there's accurate data on that available.
Because it certainly has helped on the school board having 10 members instead of 8. That's just been my experience. But also you might want to think about the atmosphere of the select board, not only now, but in times past. Who has felt welcome and who has not. I think it's a terrible shame we lost Laura the way we did.
I think that was a personal choice on Laura's part. If there's any implication that was as a result of the current members of the select board, I would beg to differ with that implication, but maybe that's not what you're implying.
Partially, but I also emailed both of you about it twice.
Well, yes, you did.
People need to feel really welcome, and you're going to do social justice training. That's great, but you also should look around other biases that are more difficult to see, but are still there. They are there, even if they're not recognized, and you would do well to look at that. I may be privy to more information than you are, but you know, I think we lost somebody who was bringing this town into the present and readying it for the future. And I think that's going to be really hard to replace. So whoever comes forward, I hope they are in the same vein of energy that Laura brought to this board. And I'm glad to see you moving forward with learning, because we all continue to have to learn throughout our lives. But I just thought about the school board, and it makes for less work having 10 people over 8. You know, we have 10 schools and 8 people trying to cover 10 schools and all the committees and this, that, and the other. Having the extra 2 people has been very helpful. So I didn't know if that applied to the town as well. Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, I don't have a correct answer for you because I don't know.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Mr.
A point of order, Mr. Chairman. Precisely what item on the agenda is being discussed at present?
We just finished social bias and now we're in other business and we are going to move on now to library post-COVID.
Well, I do not notice anything in there regarding questions such as the former chairperson's reasons for resigning from the Town of Putney Select Board. And I would suggest that everyone avoid putting words into her mouth.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's good advice. All right, I think we are ready to move on to other business, which first thing is library post-COVID.
Hi, Emily.
Hey guys, nice to see you all. I also like how I'm listed. I'm really interested in this post-COVID idea, and I'd love to be there now. Last time we met, we were definitely deeper in early COVID, and I just explained some of the services that we had adapted for the time when our building was closed. I'm delighted to report that our building is now open, though not back to our full hours yet. We opened on Monday, the 14th of September, and we've been having really great, appreciative crowds. I think in your Selectboard packet, Selectboard folks, you guys have my initial reopening plan that was written and approved by the board, by the library board before we opened. Pretty much as soon as we opened, we realized that certain parts of it made sense and certain parts really didn't. So we have a lot of people here who haven't read that, so I'll go through it and just explain what's going on with reopening, what the plan is like, and then I'd love to answer some questions. So to begin with, we're starting with 2 days open, Mondays and Wednesdays, and we're open for 4 hours at a time. On Mondays, we're open from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., and Wednesdays, we're open from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., and we're hoping to expand that as things go well and as we're able. Presently, Tom Goddard and I had a conversation earlier, a couple of months ago about what the capacity of the building should be, and presently we are allowing in 15 patrons, and we have 2 staff members working as well, so 17 total capacity in the building at one time. Patrons are allowed to come in and spend 20 minutes in the library, so they have a 20-minute visit. Originally, we were attempting to have sort of 2 cohorts per hour where people came in on the hour and half hour. That really doesn't seem to work for both how people show up at the library, and also I think practically it would have been a really difficult situation creating a bottleneck at the desk when people are ready to check out at the end of the 20 minutes. Instead of closing twice per hour as we were originally planning, we're cleaning continuously during the hour, and then at 10 of each hour we close and wipe down all of the high-touch surfaces, all the doorknobs, handles, the circulation desk. We've purchased sort of membranous covers for the computer keyboard, so those get wiped down on the computers that were used, and then we open back up at the top of the hour and welcome people back in. Originally, we were thinking about appointments, but in consulting with other libraries that have opened, the appointments seem to be more of a barrier to service and just crazy making for the staff. And luckily, we have not needed them. So we've had a nice steady trickle, but we haven't had more than 10 patrons in the building at a time. And that's just sort of naturally occurring. We were a little bit vague with our PR, with the thought that if everybody sort of rushed the front door right at opening, we would have to impose more structure, but it's been really steady instead, which is great. Everyone must wear a mask. The staff wears a mask the entire time, and all patrons must wear a mask that covers the nose and mouth, or all patrons over the age of 2. I think in the plan that you guys had, I had over the age of 5, but that was a mistake on my part. We have different markers to help people remember to maintain social distancing. We've changed our unattended child policy so that children 12 and under need to be accompanied by an adult to come in. We do have public computers available, but we have fewer of them. I have removed some, just made the public computer area a little bit sparser for distance, but we also have patron laptops that people can borrow and use outside on the library grounds for a longer period of time if they can't get what they need to get done in 20 minutes. And bathrooms are accessible to patrons and are cleaned at least once an hour, but usually more than that. And most chairs and tables have been removed. Anybody that's been in here will say it looks spacious, which is an understatement. And there are other things as well. Magazines are available for circulation only. We do not have any shared newspapers, so we don't have the shared daily newspaper presently. Patrons can select books from the stacks. Patrons can make copies or scan documents. And we have 2 staff members at all times while we're open. I'm just taking a look at what else should be in my highlights reel here. And items that are returned are being quarantined for 7 days before they are checked in and recirculated to others. So when people come in, they either place their items in the drop box outside, or they can put them directly in the bin that we empty the drop box into. And then at the end of the day, the bin is closed up and parked, and then we check it in on the same day the following week. Other things, we are still not available for outside groups to use, and we have no in-person programs of our own either. So please let me know if there's anything I've left out, because at this point I've been thinking about this so much I might be a little too close to it to really be able to see everything that might need explaining.
So Emily, you still have story time, correct?
Yes, we've been doing story time steadily throughout COVID. I don't think we even missed the first week, which is great. Susan Hesse does a wonderful story time. Anybody of any age who needs a pick-me-up should go to our Facebook page, where you can watch all of the cached story times of Susan for the past many weeks. We also have a bunch of other, we have our other regular programs as well. They're all by Zoom. And if anybody is not subscribed to the library newsletter and would like to be, you can email me at emily@putneylibrary.org, sign up for the newsletter at our website, or give me a call at the library.
So one question for you, Emily.
Yes, please.
Do you see extending your hours in the near future, or are you just kind of gonna wait it out a little bit and see what happens?
Well, I think we were definitely waiting to see how the first week went, but I think things are going really well. We would love to expand hours. Presently, there's only 2 of us working with the public, which is in itself unsustainable. So I'm hoping that before we add a 3rd day, we need to add a 3rd person, and then hopefully expand our hours from there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Thank you,
This
Emily.
is Jamie. I just wanted to say that through the Putney Mutual Aid work, I have paid new attention to Emily's role in our community in a way that I hadn't had an opportunity before. And the way that she leverages the resources that she has for the children in our community has just been really profound to watch. And I wanted to honor you in the role you play in our community.
Thank you, Jamie. That's really sweet. I see. Did Eva have a question?
Not a question, but I wanted, did you mention Canopy, which when it came into my life, it was like, wow, it's like free movies. Now, I'm not doing well physically, but I'll tell you, it has brought such great joy. So can you tell people a little bit about that? How they can get it for free?
Happy to. Yeah, I've definitely pumped this at the select board meeting before, but Canopy is, it's sort of like a Netflix-like service that libraries can offer to their patrons, and we were able to purchase a subscription. It's free for the patrons. Yes, I mean, it is paid for by your tax dollars, and therefore it is free for everybody who has a library card to use. And it is like a Netflix type situation, but it focuses more on foreign films and documentaries, and a lot of there's a lot of great children's content. And anybody that needs their library card number can get in touch, or if you do not have one, you should also get in touch about that.
It's the best.
It's really, people are really loving it. Thank you, Eva, for reminding me to tell people about that.
Hey.
Anyone else? Great. Well,
Thank you, Emily.
Yep, no problem. I just wanted to keep everybody in the loop about what was going on. And if you are available during our limited open hours, I do hope you will visit. We're also continuing, one thing I forgot to mention is we're continuing to do pickup lending. So people who are concerned about coming into the library do not need to come in. They are still able to get the books, get their items the same way they were able to get them through the past bunch of months, which is by picking them up outside the library in bags with their names on them.
Good. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. Everyone have a good night.
You too. Okay. So we have appointments and resignations. Did we already appoint Aileen to the Planning Commission?
No, she was on the last agenda, but we skipped over it. So
Somehow we missed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Can you please appoint her this evening?
Yes, we would. I think we would gladly do that. David, would you like to move that we appoint Aileen Chute to the Planning Commission?
Motion that we appoint Aileen Chute to the Planning Commission.
All right, and I will second that. And for those of you who don't know Aileen, she has been working in the Lister's office and is definitely a productive and well-informed member of the town hall community and would be very welcome on the Planning Commission. So that's great. So it's been moved and seconded to appoint her as to the Planning Commission. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All right. And then we have a couple resignations. Resignation from the Equity and Inclusion Committee. Christopher Irian is stepping down. And I didn't see that letter, Karen, but...
No, I asked for him to send me something, but I think Jamie Contois can speak to that because...
We were, yeah, so we were having some challenges with attendance in a couple of cases. And so we discussed folks considering resigning because it was affecting quorum. And so we're working on asking people to join Equity and Inclusion Committee and are actively seeking folks to join us.
Okay, good. So thank you, Christopher, for your participation in that committee, and others. If you have time and energy and willingness, we would love to have you step up for that and other committees. And that would move us to the resignation of Connecticut River Joint Commission member Joe Gruda. And Joe, I did see a letter from Joe saying that his just personal and work commitments are significant enough that he is unable to continue in his position, which he's enjoyed for the last couple of years. And thank you, Joe, very much. And he also says that he hopes to have more time in the future to come back to do town work. So we would definitely welcome that as well. So whenever you can. But thank you, Joe, for what you've done. Much appreciated. Affordable Housing Committee reinstatement status. I know that Mike Mrowicki has been doing some work on this. Karen, do you have anything to report?
I do not. I saw the email, and I think it's relative to the Windham Windsor Housing Trust. They had a virtual meeting last week, and Green Commons and the Farmers Market are all kind of tied into that area down by the co-op. So there's 24 units that are going to be built. So it's a fairly good size housing project. And I'm wondering if that's why Mike asked about contacting the members in that committee. So it is an advisory committee under the select board. So it's up to the select board how you want to move forward with that.
Okay. Well, I think if nothing else, David, if you agree, we should probably arrange a meeting and invite people to come. Gail, do you have a comment? Oh, sorry. I thought you were raising your hand. So I'll work on that with you, Karen, and we'll figure out a time to set up a meeting. And we haven't convened in a long time, and so it would be a good idea to reconvene and have a conversation, see where we go.
Okay, I'll talk to Mike as well.
Okay.
To understand where, why.
Okay, sounds good. So we have the updated resolution. I need to run to my printer to grab it. I'll be right back. Okay, so this is a resolution that my understanding was largely based on the resolution that Burlington City approved for the painting of their Black Lives Matter poster or mural. And as you all know, we have already approved the painting of this mural, and we have also approved a location on Westminster Road, but that is further resolved in this resolution. So I'm going to read the resolution, and this is available to folks who want a copy of it. It is in our packet. Painting Black Lives Matter street mural on Putney Town Highway. In the year 2020, resolved by the Select Board of the Town of Putney as follows. That whereas over the past several months in the aftermath of the killings of Rayshard Brooks, Daniel Prude, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, we have witnessed a nation in pain, turmoil, reeling from the horror and condemning in the strongest terms this outrage. And whereas from cities across the country, our nation must face these acts as a crisis and collectively lead and be heard, and let our Black and brown neighbors know we are no longer bystanders. Whereas this board and public officers hear the voices of our community and has sought to act to further racial justice by striving to support a call to action by the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, and whereas this board and its public officers wishes our community to show solidarity to honor a movement to bring justice and equality to Black and brown members of our community and beyond who have been fighting for freedom far too long. Whereas in support and honor of this movement, this board hereby authorizes the creation of a Black Lives Matter street mural to be located on Westminster Road. Now, therefore, be it resolved that on Sunday, September 27th, 2020 at 7 a.m., the Select Board extends a warm and open invitation to all members of the Putney community, subject to the limitations and social distancing guidelines established by the Governor of Vermont, to gather on Westminster Road to participate in the creation of a Black Lives Matter street mural, and be it further resolved that the Select Board acknowledges as its partner in creating this mural with the community, the NAACP shall secure the supplies for the creation of the mural, and be it further resolved that the mural will be made of paint appropriate for long-term outdoor use with the understanding the mural will be refreshed by volunteers with authorization of the Select Board through December 2020. Be it further resolved that the Select Board recognizes that while we cannot go back in time to undo the wrongs and pains of our town, state, and nation have brought on Black and brown people, we can resolve from this point forward we stand in solidarity and will work to root out systemic racism and eradicate it. Adopted this 23rd day of September 2020 at Putney, Windham County, Vermont. David, would you like to make a motion to adopt this resolution?
Yeah, hang on. I'm really having trouble with my internet. Yes, I make a motion to adopt the resolution.
Okay, and I will second the motion to adopt the resolution for the painting of a Black Lives Matter street mural on Putney Town Highway. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
This is Jamie.
Go ahead, Jamie.
I just am struck by the fact that today the officers, I don't know if the right word is acquitted, but Breonna Taylor, who was asleep as an EMT, who was shot in her bed by police officers who thought they were someplace else. All of the police officers were absolved of that crime, and it was a huge loss to all of us that her life was lost. And I just wanted to thank you for naming her and including her, and that this vote would happen on this day further indicates to me that this is really timely and important. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the vote on this mural, on this resolution? All right. All those in favor? Aye. Oh. David just froze. Oh dear. David, you froze. Did you vote aye? Aye. David votes aye. So the resolution has been approved, and since this is on Sunday, Karen, you need signatures. So David, we should just remember to try and get into town tomorrow or the next day and just put your signature on that resolution.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Fairman.
Just a small clarification. I just verified right now the Washington Post headline, which reads, "One officer charged in Breonna Taylor death," but okay, I'll get it exactly. One officer involved in Breonna Taylor shooting is charged, but not for her death. The reason I bring it up is because it's not quite as was stated by the previous speaker.
Yeah. Yeah, I have only heard the preliminary reports. My understanding is that the charges are more related to shots that were fired, not necessarily. I don't know. But yes, thank you for that. Thank you for that further information. All right, I think that is it. Any other business that people would like to bring up?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Fairman.
Very briefly, coming back to our discussion earlier about recruiting people to run for the select board, it may be worth mentioning that two former members of the Putney Select Board founded notable political careers by first serving on the Putney Select Board, being Governor Shumlin and Senator White.
That's true. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking to move up through the ranks, it's a good place to start.
It's where to enlist.
Yeah, exactly. Or
if you prefer.
I don't know exactly, but I believe those are only two of a more significant list that goes back much further in Putney's history. But I wouldn't be able to elaborate, so I won't try.
Well, neither could I offhand, Mr. Chairman. So I didn't try that either.
Thank you for that, though. All right, we do need an executive session, so. I will make a motion that we enter an executive session based on Title I V.S.A. 313, the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer and employee, provided that the public body shall make a final decision to hire or appoint a public official or employee in an open meeting and shall explain the reasons for its final decision during that open meeting. David, second.
And I second that. Is this working? Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you.
Hallelujah.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to enter executive session. I'm just going to tell, I don't believe that we are going to take any action tonight, but we will, when we come out of session, we will clarify and we will notify BCTV as to action if we take it. And also our next meeting date is October 7th. So that's 2 weeks from tonight. It's been moved and seconded to enter executive session. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you all for coming with us, and we're going to shut you out now, or you can also leave, but we will enter executive session. And if you want to stick around, we'll be back, but otherwise we'll see you next time, hopefully.
Good night, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Yeah.